Injuries have really kept the Golden State Warriors from continuing their dynasty in which they won 3 out of 5 championships from 2015 to 2019. After having such good luck with injuries throughout their 5 straight finals appearances, things really took a turn for the worse for the franchise, and they have missed the playoffs for 2 straight years. That seemed impossible with how much better this team was compared to the rest of the league a few years ago. Since Kevin Durant left in 2019, the organization has told everyone that they would be back in contention once players were healthy. But that's the thing, they still haven't been fully healthy just yet. One player in particular hasn't been healthy since Game 6 of the 2019 NBA Finals, Klay Thompson. It seems like we haven't watched this guy play in like 5 years. Being out for the 2019-20 season really wasn't a surprise because of when the injury occurred and the timeline for an ACL recovery. After working his way back for nearly a year and a half, Thompson had a second setback by tearing his right Achilles during the offseason workout in November, just a month out from the start of the 2021 season. Since Thompson has been sidelined, the Warriors have struggled going 54-83 during the past 2 regular seasons. The strength of the previous Warriors teams were not only their star players, but the deep rotation that would maintain and extend leads. They have always had quality veteran players that they could depend on during tense moments. They had players like Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston, Andrew Bogut, and David West. Slowly over the years, that amazing depth they had has basically been diminished, and Steph Curry and Draymond Green have been surrounded by a bunch of unproven young players that the team now has to rely on to become one of the best teams in the league again. Without his splash brother by his side once again, last season Steph Curry proved that he's still capable of being a transcendent basketball player without an all-star supporting cast. There was some doubt about whether he can still be an elite player that can carry your offense. It was Curry's first full season without an all-star teammate since 2014. When Curry was on the floor, the Warriors looked like a playoff team. When he wasn't on the floor, you could argue that this team looked like a lottery team. Curry almost single-handedly dragged the Warriors to relevancy this season and proved once and for all that he can excel without star teammates. Head coach Steve Kerr thinks he's playing the best he's ever played at, and it's hard to argue that after last season. Let me just run down for you all the records and accomplishments he had last season. Curry led the NBA in scoring. He was the oldest player to win a scoring title since Michael Jordan. He had 38 30-point games, which was also the most since Jordan. He led the league with 337 three-pointers made. It was his 4th season making at least 300 three-pointers, which is the most in NBA history. He broke the Warriors' all-time scoring record. He had 7 games of 10-plus three-pointers, which is also the most in NBA history. The NBA witnessed peak-level Steph Curry last season, but with so much depth in the Western Conference, a 39-33 record wasn't good enough to secure a playoff spot. The Warriors had a lot of gut-wrenching losses and frustrated missed opportunities that ultimately led to them missing the postseason for the 2nd straight year. Without another reliable scoring option alongside Steph Curry, it was easy to look at a player like Draymond and be disappointed that he wasn't able to provide more offense. His value can really be appreciated more when he's surrounded by great scorers because you won't have to rely on him to be something that he's not. He only averaged 7 points per game last season, but you should know by now that Draymond brings a lot to the table, and scoring is really not one of those strengths. That's kind of like the icing on the cake. He is a defensive mastermind and a great facilitator. Scoring has always been a stat that gets the most attention, but it really wasn't hard to see the effect that Draymond had for this team on both ends of the court, despite being arguably one of the worst scorers in the league. Green led the team in both assists and rebounds, and his overall impact on the team was represented by his net rating, which was a team best. It's not a coincidence that Green was 6th in the league in total assists last season when you had one of the best scorers in the league in Steph Curry. Draymond has been in the top 10 in assists in 4 of the last 5 seasons. Last season, Green had his highest defensive win shares total since the 2016-17 season. He helped the Warriors finish 5th in defensive rating. Love him or hate him, Draymond is still an important piece of this core, and his game is truly one of the main pillars on which the Golden State dynasty has been built. It's just important for the organization to work their magic like they have been known for and put the necessary pieces around the big three. After being drafted #1 overall to be the franchise player in Minnesota, Wiggins has really found a perfect role with this Warriors team. In his first full season in Golden State, he really showed why he can be a long-term building block. Last season, Wiggins posted career highs in shooting percentages from the field and from the three-point line, on his way to averaging almost 19 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. Labeled as a disappointment with the Timberwolves, Wiggins emerged as one of Golden State's most reliable players. Draymond was obviously the defensive anchor on this team, but Wiggins most definitely was very crucial to them finishing top 5 in defensive rating. He played the defense that many NBA scouts thought he was capable of when he was drafted in 2014. Only 12 players contested more shots last season than Wiggins, and no other wing player contested as many as he did. Wiggins also held opponents to nearly 2 percentage points lower than their season shooting average. Having Klay Thompson back in the lineup will help Wiggins become even more comfortable with his role, because there were times last season when the team needed Wiggins to be more aggressive and shoot more shots. He was the second leading scorer on the team. There were 4 games last season where Wiggins took less than 10 shots. In the 18 games he took less than 12 shots, Golden State went 5-13. The lack of aggressiveness in big parts of the game has always been a problem for him. That's why he can never live up to being the #1 overall pick. He's not wired that way. You could say he has superstar ability, but has a role player mentality. With Klay Thompson coming back and hopefully returning back to his old ways, Wiggins will have less pressure on him to generate offense during key moments, and he can be that third option. It's unfair that a 20-year-old kid like James Wiseman has to develop faster than he probably needs to, but that's the situation he's in right now with the Warriors. The core of this team is over the age of 30 and trying to make another run at the championship, and they need consistent production from a lot of role players for them to even have a chance of being one of the top teams in the league again. But Wiseman's development was cut short last season due to injury. He only played 39 games in his rookie season. As we saw throughout his rookie season, he's definitely a project. He had a lot of good moments during the season, but for the most part, you can tell he's just not ready to give consistent production. Overall, Golden State's net rating was 11.4 points better per 100 possession with Wiseman on the bench. His 110.6 defensive rating was 4th worst out of any Warriors player who played meaningful minutes. If you look at the amount of actual games he played over the last 2 years in college and in the pros, it's understandable why he struggled a lot during his rookie year. The circumstances weren't ideal for any rookie last season. The pandemic forced the draft to be pushed back 5 months and limited the amount of off-season workouts prospects could have with their respective teams. With the amount of games that he missed last season, Wiseman is still basically a rookie. One of the bright spots from last season for the Warriors was the development from players like Jordan Poole and Juan Descato Anderson. They both had solid years and slowly transitioned into the Warriors brand of basketball as the season progressed. After struggling early on in the season and falling out of the rotation, Jordan Poole spent some time in the G League, and that helped him regain his confidence and unlock another level to his game. He clearly grew more comfortable each night, becoming a legitimate and reliable force off the bench. Unlike with Wiggins, Poole wasn't afraid to take the big shot in crunch time. You really don't have to tell him twice to shoot the ball. Poole is an exciting and skilled player who can build off his momentum from this past season and take another leap forward. The backup point guard spot wasn't one of the team's strengths last season, and they're going into this season without that position solidified. Adding a legit backup point guard will allow the Warriors to rest Steph Curry for longer and keep him in relatively great shape in the playoffs. Recently, the Warriors have signed Avery Bradley and Langston Galloway. Regardless of which one emerges after training camp, the Warriors need solid production at that spot when Steph Curry is not on the floor. This team has their work cut out for them to be where they want to be. There are a lot of things working against them already. The Warriors are going to be conservative when it comes to Klay Thompson's return to the court, and that is the best move. Recovery from a torn Achilles is generally around 12 months, and Klay had surgery on November 25th of 2020. He is going to participate in various controlled drills during training camp. His return to full practice will be determined at a later date. The plan is to have him make his debut around Christmas, and at that time the Warriors will have played around 20 to 25 games. Who knows where the Warriors will be in the standings at that time. And you also have to factor in how long it will take Klay to get back in actual game shape and get comfortable playing in the NBA game again. It could take a while. And there's also a risk of Klay having a soft tissue injury because of missing so many games in the last 2 years. Kevin Durant had to deal with a hamstring injury during his first season back from his Achilles injury. It could be around the All-Star break when Klay Thompson looks like Klay Thompson again. And there's also the news of Andrew Wiggins not being able to play in home games because he's not vaccinated. This will be an uphill climb for the Warriors to get back to the playoffs. Ultimately, I believe the Warriors will have just enough to secure one of the last 2 spots in the playoffs. I have the Warriors finishing with the 7th seed with a 44-38 record. Hopefully Klay Thompson will look like he did before he got hurt in 2019. It will take some time for him to get back in game shape and get readjusted to the NBA game. I fully expect some kind of big move for the Warriors this season because they have a couple of young and talented players that are not quite ready to contribute just yet. The timeline of their core just doesn't match up with their recent lottery picks. Eventually a move will happen. Steph Curry will once again have to carry the offense for much of the season, and maybe the other half of the Splash Brother can give him the offensive help he's been missing since the 2019 finals.